I realized that there is a type of art that's missing today. And I used to grow up with it. It was the type of art that was rebellious in nature. The type of art that you know you're not doing anything wrong by partaking in it, but at the same time, it wasn't something that you would be proud of. Like, for example, you wouldn't want your mom to know what you're watching when you're consuming South Park. That they have little Kenny on the screen being torn apart by rats and being beheaded every single episode. A lot of blood and gore. And you have South Park making fun of Jesus. You know, like that wasn't something that you would want your mother to know you're doing. But at the same time, you knew that it's harmless. Like, no one is suffering because of it. Listening to black metal where they were singing about worshiping Satan and, you know, all those edgy bands. Like, you didn't want polite society to know that you're doing this, but at the same time, you know that it wasn't anything bad. And I think this is what's missing today. Like, there is no show that I can talk about that I would say, yeah, this is kind of edgy. I think like maybe Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones or Fake Woke would qualify as something similar, but let's be honest, there's not much shows, and I think it's kind of sad because it shows that artistic freedom is dying. There is no more creative expression. It's just corporate expression. Like, this is what the corporations want you to create if you want to sell a product. That's how it is today. Fortunately, though, there are still some countries like Japan that still have freedom of expression. They managed to create a very thought-provoking manga. Now, the manga is called The New Normal, and initially I thought that it's just going to be like satire and propaganda against, you know, like our modern life. But I don't think so. It's definitely not preachy. So a person reading the manga up till now can make up their mind about whatever they want, because the manga takes place in a fictional setting in the future, and they talk about how a pandemic ravaged the earth, and because of that, everyone is now masking up, and everyone now has an obligation. They say that a little before kids were born, the pandemic took over the world, and wearing masks became an obligation, then common sense, and then it became a cultural thing. Now, the interesting thing is that we don't know if the pandemic actually happened in their universe or not. So we don't know if it was as bad as they describe it or not, because it's very thought-provoking. If the pandemic literally happened and killed, I believe it's 3/4 of the human population in their universe, then the measures that they are doing isn't that outlandish and far-fetched. However, if the government is lying to them, then they live in the most tyrannical place ever. Because as you go through the story, you realize that the action takes place outside of Tokyo, and the entire Tokyo is just walled off. And it's called a quarantine zone, with anyone that goes in or out is immediately being sought after by the government. And we don't know what happens to the people that get caught. Now, the author tries to explain how this situation would model a society, and one of the ways is how it changes human sexuality. Because masking up in this fictional universe is done a lot more stricter than any country on earth right now, to the point where people aren't allowed to show their faces even in the household. Even when they're sitting with their family eating, they still have a mask. The idea of showing one's face has become sexualized. It's almost like a fetish. And I think it's similar to what happens with Middle Eastern countries, where the ankle or the knee becomes something sexy. I think that scarcity does influence how we think about other human beings. So maybe in a society where women would walk bare-chested, people would be a lot less attracted by breasts than in a society like ours. I think there is something to say in that, and this is what the author is going with. So in this universe, like sexy magazines have women that can not show their face, but they have a veil which doesn't leave much to the imagination. Now, the story is a romantic comedy, at least I think it is, up till this chapter. I don't know where the artist wants to take this. It can become just a zombie survival manga within 3 months. I have no idea. It leaves a lot of room to the interpretation. But In this universe, even the faucets are created differently. So you have like the faucet in such a way that you could put your mask over it so that you can drink water without other people seeing your face. However, a girl which thinks that she is alone and no one is at the school anymore drinks water without her mask on, and a guy manages to see her. So this is implied to be incredibly problematic. First of all, it's from the cultural sense that it's almost like seeing a person naked. But it secondly is the fact that he could now report her for this behavior. And she runs out crying, being completely blushed and humiliated by what happened. And I think like she was expecting the guy to laugh at her and tell on her. But that doesn't happen. So because of that, she wants to talk to him. And they get together and they have another conversation. And now she wants to see his face. And as he shows her the face, she gets really blushed and very emotional. And again, like she just runs away, not able to have the conversation because like this is incredibly new to them. It's almost like the first kiss type of thing. It's very innocent in a way. Now, because she is the hottest girl in class and the guy is quite low on the pecking order, it makes the other suitors for this girl to be very jealous. So the guy ends up getting bullied at school. And what's interesting is that despite you see this, and one of the kids has their hands around the guy's throat while another kid is holding him, and you can tell that this is like very violent and he's being held against his will. When the teacher comes out, instead of chastising them for hurting another student, he is chastising them for not social distancing. And it's not viewed just as a health issue. It's viewed as a common decency, like a moral issue. And because of that, now they have to undergo special education. And the special education is one of those very cringy videos that we probably all watched as a teenager that is done by a person who doesn't understand teenagers at all, never interacts with them, but they're educated on teenagers, right? They read the literature, so they think they understand how teens think, and it's like the version of an adult trying to create something that they think would appeal for teens. But in reality, when you look at it, it's incredibly cringy because it is very patronizing. So you have like these cartoon animals that are explaining to the teenagers just things that they probably already know. And they talk about how the world population used to be 7.7 billions and it's now 5 times smaller due to the pandemic. And it talks to them about keeping masks in public, not exposing the mouth and noses, and they must keep the distancing when eating and not talking while eating. Let's try and avoid eating with anyone who isn't family wherever possible. So now you understand like I guess the rules of this universe. And this is not like a temporary measure. Like this is how their society is now built. Like there is no end to this. This is how it's always going to be from now on. So the two characters, they start having a relationship, which is based around the fact that they're doing something that they're definitely not supposed to. Much like in the George Orwell's 1984 book, where you have the main protagonist just falling in love because they start questioning the narrative of the government. Now, in this case, the characters, they want to have a picnic. And this is considered to be, it's like having an orgy in public, pretty much. It's just like way beyond taboo. And they figured out that if they can go past the fence where the quarantine zone is, no one is going to see them and they can have their picnic there. So they bring a couple of sandwiches and, the way the artist portrays this in the manga is very beautiful. Like they take off their masks and they smell the grass and they're basically enjoying life for the first time ever. And the fact that they have someone else to share this feeling with, it deepens the bond of romantic relations. And as they're doing this, all of a sudden a siren calls and a loudspeaker says that this is the Epidemic Prevention Agency Hygiene Administration Bureau. There is currently a local emergency alert in this area. Please keep calm and follow the level 3 pandemic guidelines. If you see anyone violating the pandemic guidelines, do not approach them and report them immediately. So I'll stop sharing the story here. Like, if you want to figure out what happens next, you're going to have to read the manga yourself. It's very interesting. I definitely love reading it. It's thought provoking, and yeah, it's something that I definitely enjoy. So if I enjoy it, I can recommend it to other people. Just like if you enjoyed this video, I hope you can recommend it to other people as well. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It helps out with the algorithm. Clicking the thumbs up also helps. And hey, if you really want to pitch in, I have a link to my Subscribe Star as the pinned comment. And even small donations of $1 or $5 help. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll see you guys there.